Then, just when I expect my apology, he turns silent, stays lying down, staring up at the ceiling, not responding to my questions about the rest of his day. Something shifts in my self-control. Can't you at least grunt out some answer rather than lie there gaping like a barn animal? He stands up, looks at the floor, pulls on his Bermudas, and leaves. I throw my hairbrush at the door. Jake is a vacator, a mental vacationer. His departures leave big black holes. He cannot help it. First he is here, then he is not, and then he comes back again. Later that night, after his dental appointment, he behaves well, brings Zygmunt, someone I like very much, to the bar, apologizes, stays warm and attentive. My mistake is expecting that side of his personality to last, but it's a form of hope, and hope is not a bad habit to have. Well, my therapist, more accurately, a graduate student psychotherapist in training, says, when I relate this during our bi-weekly session, pressing the palms of his hands together, tapping the two index fingers against his lips in a practiced, expressionless tone. Surely you were drawn less to Jake that night in the bar than to your decorator friend, Zygmunt. You're masking unacceptable sexual fantasies toward her. No, and not. This illustrates a big problem with my assigned graduate student psychotherapist in training, seeing him as a requirement for my university degree. He leaps to his own opinions without listening to what I am saying or how I am saying it. A professional therapist would probe Jake's need to blot out his actions, my insistence upon acknowledgement, my attraction to this mental vacator, my choice of university study and friends. This graduate student fixes on an aspect missing from my entire story, unacknowledged sexual fantasies. I totally acknowledge my sexual fantasies. Toward this graduate student, none. Toward Zygmunt, none. Recent fantasy examples, all my university professors, and Jake. There are two things with Jake and me. One is tendency to slip away, two, our connection. I would talk to my graduate student psychotherapist in training about that. What draws me to and repels me from Jake with his deep-seated need to exit quality, and how this personality trait works well for him professionally, makes him such an excellent reporter of gruesome human behaviors, but against him emotionally. And we could also examine why I, once or twice, sleep with Jake's friends, seedy behavior, but also one strong way I can express to Jake how much his disorder and the big black holes it leaves derails me. But my assigned graduate student is much more interested in manufacturing stories about me or projecting his fantasies onto me than listening to what I say or how I say it. Some of the students on my program are overly aware of breeding and claim to know the detail of one another's lineage. Having met a selection of their parents and grandparents, I don't see how they can be so sure. There's so much intermingling in that crowd. In the end, how do you really know who fathers you? Unless you're Siri and look exactly like your dad. Last week he was here on business and invited some of us to his hotel suite. He began the evening by leading a brief group meditation, followed by a round of aperitifs, wine, and a several-course dinner in the hotel's 4-star vegetarian restaurant. At dinner, he launches into a riff against aperitif glasses. Why would someone invent a vessel that small? He believes the reason is about meanness. Mean is a good word, he continues. It can be defined as unkind and cheap, two qualities that are one and the same. Jake just used that word, mean, in the same context, telling me about overhearing Beau in bed with Francis. It's a mean thing I do sometimes. Listen, Jake says. I remember hearing Francis in verbal action. She had had too many aperitifs and was going on to Beau. Don't use the word amusing when you mean stupid. Just say stupid, or that you don't care for. Don't say butter's amusing. Just say I don't care for butter. But Beau, stop generalizing, like when you refer to a whole city, like when you said Paris is amusing. What you meant was I don't care for Paris. And you and I know what that means. What you didn't care for was no one took you to good restaurants or stores. No one reviewed your book or came to your workshops. None of that is Paris. All of it is you. Don't confuse the two, you and Paris. This directed toward Beau. It seems harsh even now, but who can judge any relationship? Jake would never serve you an aperitif in an aperitif glass. He drinks from one if someone serves him. That's part of his job, fitting in. It's important for him to observe, but when on his turf, he serves everyone, including himself, drinks in a sizable glass. I am not saying he fills the glass up with more liquid than would be in an aperitif glass. He understands the logic behind the aperitif glass, is that the aperitif should be a small amount of liquid. He does not quibble with the small amount of liquid. He quibbles with the meanness of a tiny glass.